Transition. I started up my first company probably 25 years ago when startup didn't exist, or the term didn't exist. The transition into the startup we have now has basically occurred over the last 8 years or thereabouts. We started solving problems in environmental space that were big data problems, things like flood modelling, where it was far too complex for people to look at. And we worked out that if we're going to do this properly, it needs to be done much more efficiently than the way it's been going forward. And so it's been a bit of a transition. I'm an engineer and I'm a dot joiner more than anything else. I see how things fit together. But I have a lot of really smart people that work with me that help us actually put that into a smooth space. And if I had to explain what we do, it's a little bit like, I'll use oil as a bit of an analogy in this space. So Peter Sondergaard from Gartner last year basically said that data is the oil of the future. In actual fact, data is the energy of the future. And our job is to take that raw data, a bit like oil, find it in the first place, then curate it, actually get it clean, refine it, and then produce some really high quality products from it. But that's where the analogy with oil stops, because our next job then is to serve it as lightly as we can straight to a user, their car, or directly into the engine that's driving them, i.e. their business going forward. And that's basically what we're working on doing, if that's not too complex.
So explain to us exactly what it is that Anditi does. You've just saved someone $500,000. I'm interested to know. Can it help me?
Okay, so we work with, and I'm going to try and make it as simple as I possibly can. We work with spatial data, spatial information. So if you think about Google and you look at Google Earth and you look at the images that are there, that information contains a lot more than just what you see with your eye. And you can start to drill down into that information and find out where there are curbs and where there are different species in that space, etc. And we can actually pull that out. We combine that with those images with a thing called LiDAR. So when a policeman picks you up for travelling too fast, he shot a laser beam at you. He can work out exactly where you are in space. We can do the same with aircraft, helicopters, satellites, other bits and pieces, and work out exactly what something looks like. We then start to build analytics on all that. We start to analyse that data. So the building guys that we save about $500,000 a year for, they used to drive to site to look at what the neighbours' houses looked like, to look at where the trees were, to find out where the fire hydrants were, to find roof pitches and all those things. We just serve that up to them on their computer screen because we can analyse it to that level. Okay.
So, mindful of your background, many years of entrepreneurial spirit, what of that experience has supported you in terms of moving to this next stage with the startup and then scaling up?
Look,
if at all.
No, lots. So I spent the last 25 years or thereabouts working with clients and the community, trying to make the most out of the resources we have to fire the community we live in, all right? And we've done a lot of work in that space, but the realities come, or the understandings come that it's not just the resources. We need to think about how we use them in a much more clever way going forward. And I can give you a few examples in that space. If you go back to a Cobb & Co coach back in the turn of the century, you'd use 6 horses and probably 4 weeks to take 20 kilos of letters or 200 kilos of letters and 4 people to Armidale, say, all right? You'd use about 800 kilowatt hours of power. You generate about 800 kilograms of CO2, of gas. Nowadays, the next transition from that was technology, fossil fuel cars. You cut the travel time down to 4 hours, you cut the greenhouse gas emission down to about half, and you cut the energy consumption down to about a quarter of what was used otherwise. Nowadays, using technology, data, we press a button, an email gets sent or a PDF gets sent or something else, does all that information. Doesn't necessarily transfer the people, but it transfers the information across, going through it. And that is sort of the analogy that we're seeing we have to do. At this point in time, we're about 7 times over the global renewable footprint of energy usage. If we don't get smarter about how we use what we've got, then we're just not going to be here. And that's what it's about.
Wow, that's really amazing. So you're basically gathering data from everything, like in order to refine the process on how to work with it and in multiple industries.
Yeah, so 25 years of doing environmental consulting covered a lot of ground. and we have a good understanding. I've worked with other people in that space. One of the guys, our head of technology, has been with me 20 years, basically. So we understand what the information needs to look like. We'll go and look and find that information and make sure it's fit for purpose, as we say. It's the right resolution, right quality, etc., etc. And then we'll analyse it to produce the results that we need.